Michael snatched the paper, noting only Patricia's ornate signature. "This isn't legal. Where's the rest of the board's approval?" "Digital signatures pending," she replied smoothly. "Now, I need to clear access to the community mailboxes and my route to the hospital. I'm on the board there, you know." "That machine cost me $2,700, Michael said, his breath forming angry clouds. "My name is literally engraved on the handlebar." Patricia's smile hardened. "Technically, all exterior equipment must be approved by the architectural committee, which your machine never was. I could issue a fine, but I'm being reasonable by putting it to community use instead." When Michael stepped toward his snowblower, Patricia pressed a panic button on her key fob. The Mercedes horn blared and lights flashed. "That's technically assault if you come closer," she said, "and the security company has already been notified." Michael watched in disbelief as Patricia struggled with the beast's controls, grinding its gears and leaving an irregular path through the snow, toward her own driveway first, not the community mailboxes. The community meeting Michael called through the neighborhood email list was hijacked before it began. Residents received a message from Patricia's official HOA email: "Emergency conditions meeting postponed. Unauthorized gatherings subject to $500 community disturbance fee." Michael's next stop was the police station, where Officer Dawkins sighed heavily after hearing the story. "Technically, the HOA agreement you signed gives the board emergency powers," he explained, scanning the dubious document. "It's civil, not criminal. You'd need to get a court order, which is impossible with the courthouse closed due to the storm." 3 days passed. Michael watched from his window as Patricia used the beast to clear not only her driveway, but those of her friends on the board, while 78-year-old Mrs. Abernathy across the street remained snowbound, her heart medication running dangerously low. That evening, Michael sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers: the HOA covenant, bylaws, architectural guidelines, and Minnesota property laws. His construction experience had taught him to read contracts carefully, and as he pored over the documents, he found what lawyers call the gray area, the space between explicitly forbidden and explicitly allowed. Section 17.3 specified height restrictions for permanent structures, 12 feet, while 17.4 limited decorative landscape features to tasteful designs appropriate to the season. Section 22.9 addressed snow removal, but only specified that snow should be cleared in a timely manner and not be deposited on community roads. Michael's eyes gleamed as he checked the weather forecast. Another storm approaching, with temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Fahrenheit after. He pulled out graph paper and began calculating volumes, angles, and load-bearing capacity of compacted snow-ice mixtures. By midnight, he had formulated not just a plan, but a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Day 1 began with Michael renting 2 pieces of equipment: a commercial-grade snowblower and a water pump. He started by clearing his own driveway, then Mrs. Abernathy's, then 6 other neighbors, collecting mountains of snow. Rather than discarding it, he transported it meticulously to the property line he shared with the street fronting Patricia's house. "What are you building, Mike?" called Jeff from next door, watching as Michael carefully formed the snow into a dense, engineered base structure. "Just a winter sculpture," Michael replied with a wink. "Something to brighten the neighborhood." By nightfall, he had constructed a rampart of snow 4 feet high and 20 feet long. As darkness fell and temperatures plunged, he connected garden hoses to his water supply and began the first ice treatment, a fine mist that penetrated the snow and froze solid within minutes. Day 2 brought sunshine that would normally melt snow, but only hardened Michael's creation as the meltwater froze in the still frigid air. He added 3 more feet of height and began sculpting a gentle curve that extended, entirely on his property, toward the precise spot where Patricia illegally parked her Mercedes overnight to keep her heated driveway clear. By day 3, neighbors were stopping to watch. Michael worked with the focus of Michelangelo, using techniques from his construction days to reinforce the structure. The ice wall now stood 7 feet tall and glinted like blue crystal in the winter sun. When the second storm hit that night, Michael worked through it, using the fresh snow as natural mortar between ice layers. By dawn, as Patricia stepped out to assess the new snowfall, she was confronted by a fully realized ice fortress, 10 feet tall, artfully sculpted, and completely blocking her car from accessing the road. More importantly, it was entirely on Michael's property, violated no height restrictions for seasonal features, and was, by any measurement, a breathtaking piece of winter art. Patricia's scream echoed across the silent, snow-covered neighborhood. "This is vandalism," Patricia shrieked, her designer snow boots slipping as she struggled toward Michael, who was calmly drinking coffee on his front porch. "It's an ice sculpture," Michael corrected mildly. Section 17.4 allows for decorative landscape features appropriate to the season. I call it winter's embrace. "It's blocking my car," she hissed, mascara already smudging from angry tears. "Your car that's parked overnight on the street, in violation of Section 8.2. Michael sipped his coffee. "The wall doesn't extend onto public property. It's fully on my land, as your own certified property survey from last spring's fence dispute confirms." Patricia fumbled with her phone. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting." "Excellent." Michael nodded. "We can discuss the return of my snowblower too. I believe Section 4.7 prohibits unauthorized borrowing of private property, regardless of emergency resolutions." The emergency meeting that evening became legendary in Pinecrest history. Expecting a rubber stamp approval of new anti-ice wall regulations, Patricia found instead a standing room-only crowd of residents, many of whom Michael had helped during the snowstorm. Mrs. Abernathy rose first. "While I was trapped without heart medication, I watched Patricia use Michael's stolen snowblower to clear a path for her dog's relief area." Dr. Singh spoke next. "The so-called emergency powers were never voted on by the full board. I'm the treasurer, and I never saw this resolution." One by one, neighbors detailed Patricia's selective enforcement, personal use of HOA funds for inspection lunches, and pattern of targeting residents she considered beneath Pinecrest's standards. As the meeting reached its crescendo, Jeff from next door, a quiet tax attorney, cleared his throat. "I've taken the liberty of preparing paperwork for a vote of no confidence, as allowed in Bylaw 23. He distributed papers throughout the stunned room. The vote was 57-3. Patricia's tenure as HOA president ended in less than 15 minutes. As the meeting adjourned, Michael approached the now former president. "I imagine the beast will find its way home by morning," he said quietly. "And when the temperature rises next week, the ice wall will melt naturally. No rules broken, no harm done." Patricia said nothing, her face a mask of cold fury. By spring, Patricia's house was on the market. The new HOA board, led by Mrs. Abernathy, with Michael as vice president, rewrote the bylaws to focus on community support rather than punitive enforcement. The ice wall became neighborhood legend, with photos circulating on social media and even making the local news as the Great Wall of Minnesota. During the spring thaw, as the last chunks of ice melted away, neighbors gathered for an impromptu melting party with hot chocolate and stories. Michael never built another ice wall. He didn't need to, but every winter, he could be seen at dawn, meticulously clearing driveways with the beast, its custom orange trim gleaming in the winter sun. And whenever new residents asked about the infamous ice wall, Michael would simply smile and say, "In Minnesota, we believe good fences make good neighbors, even when those fences are made of ice." Michael Peterson's calloused hands still bore the marks of 30 years in construction when he waved to neighbors across snow-dusted Pinecrest estates. Unlike the doctors and executives who populated the upscale subdivision, Michael had purchased his modest craftsman home with decades of physical labor and careful saving. The neighbors respected him, not for wealth or status, but because during every Minnesota blizzard, it was Michael's distinctive figure they'd see at dawn, methodically clearing driveways for elderly residents with his prized Ariens Professional 28 snowblower, a machine he purchased after 6 months of overtime shifts. His snowblower wasn't just equipment, it was freedom. Freedom from the back-breaking shovel work that had already cost him 2 herniated discs, and freedom to maintain his independence in a neighborhood increasingly dependent on services. Michael had named it the Beast, gloss black with custom orange trim and heated handles that gleamed in the winter sun. Patricia Winter's election as HOA president changed the neighborhood's atmosphere as suddenly as a summer hailstorm. Her campaign had promised standards befitting our community's stature, but her platinum blonde bob and perpetual Burberry scarf quickly became symbols of dread. Within weeks, residents received violation notices for infractions no previous board had enforced. Unapproved bird feeders, garage doors left open longer than 15 minutes, and holiday decorations not removed by 9 a.m. the day after the holiday. At the last community meeting, Patricia had made a point of addressing Michael directly. Some residents maintained their properties in a working-class aesthetic. This simply won't do for Pinecrest. The room had fallen uncomfortably silent. Michael had simply nodded, a tight smile concealing the spark of a slow-burning fuse. The blizzard struck with apocalyptic force. 38 inches of snow driven by 60-mile-per-hour winds that sculpted massive drifts across driveways and buried cars to their rooftops. Power flickered throughout the night as Michael slept fitfully, anxious to begin clearing snow at first light. At 5:30 a.m., he trudged through knee-high snow to his garage, coffee steaming in the bitter cold. The sight that greeted him stopped him mid-stride. His garage door stood partially open, something he never allowed, and the space where the beast should have been gaped empty like a missing tooth. Fresh tracks in the snow led directly across the cul-de-sac to Patricia's 3-car garage, where light spilled onto the pristine white driveway. Through the haze of blowing snow, Michael spotted the unmistakable orange trim of his machine as Patricia, dressed in a white North Face snowsuit that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, maneuvered it awkwardly around her Mercedes SUV. "Patricia," Michael's voice barely carried through the howling wind. "That's my snowblower." She looked up, startled, but quickly composing herself with a practiced smile. "Michael, perfect timing. The board held an emergency virtual meeting last night." She produced a laminated document from her pocket. "We've enacted Emergency Resolution 72B, authorizing temporary commandeering of snow removal equipment for critical areas.